Chaos isn't freedom. It's 100 micro-decisions per day taxing the same brain you need for deep work, which is why flexible schedules often feel more exhausting than structured ones. Ambitious professionals often view the concept of a routine as a form of surrender. To them, a schedule feels like a constraint on the very spontaneity and quick thinking that defines their success. This mindset creates a day driven entirely by reaction. Bedtimes shift based on the last email sent, meals happen whenever a gap appears, and work tasks drift late into the night without a clear boundary. Every one of those gaps requires an active choice. Your brain burns through cognitive reserves just deciding when to start, when to switch, and when to stop. While this looks like autonomy, it leaves the nervous system without a reliable forecast. You are navigating the day in a state of high alert, never certain when the next period of rest or high-effort work will actually occur. Total flexibility generates a subtle, compounding friction. It results in a specific type of exhaustion that persists regardless of how many hours you spend in bed. Solving this requires a shift in how we view the brain. Rather than a static calendar, the human brain functions as a prediction machine, constantly scanning for cues to determine its next state. To make predictions, the brain monitors specific environmental signals: light, meal timing, physical movement, and social contact. These signals regulate two biological cycles: alertness through the circadian rhythm and sleep pressure through the homeostatic process. When signals are steady, these waves pulse in synchronization. A reactive schedule sends noisy and randomized signals to the brain. This lack of data causes the two waves to desynchronize, spiking and crashing at conflicting intervals. This internal mismatch manifests as a heavy fog of sleepiness during your peak working hours, followed by a sudden, unwanted spike in alertness just as you try to sleep at midnight. High-level focus and deep sleep both depend on these biological signals. Without them, the hardware simply lacks the cues it needs to perform. Once the cost of chaos becomes clear, the instinct for most high performers is to overcorrect toward the other extreme. This often involves adopting a tech billionaire's 4 a.m. wake-up call, or a rigid set of rules that ignore the realities of a professional life. They build a morning manifesto, a fragile 15-step optimization sequence that usually meets its breaking point by the third day of the week. This level of all-or-nothing rigidity is highly brittle. A single unexpected meeting or a late night out makes the entire structure collapse, leaving you back at square one. These hyper-rigid manifestos represent a different kind of chaos. They replace the friction of micro-decisions with a cycle of constant failure and subsequent guilt. A sustainable rhythm focuses on building a predictable baseline. The goal is to teach the body what to expect through a series of habits that happen usually rather than always. Instead of a total overhaul, you establish a few specific anchors. These are fixed points in time that provide the brain with the signals it needs while leaving the rest of your day flexible. Effective anchors include a consistent wake time, a dedicated wind-down window before bed, and one protected block reserved for deep work. Transitioning out of work also requires a physical signal. A short walk or a decisive ritual to shut down your workspace tells the brain that the period of high-effort alertness has concluded. Attempting to implement every anchor at once often leads to the same burnout seen with rigid manifestos. The most effective starting point is the wake-up window. It provides the strongest initial signal of the day. Keeping that single morning anchor steady begins a domino effect. It stabilizes your light exposure and naturally pulls the rest of your biological systems into alignment over time. If you take one thing from this, pick one wake-up window and hold it for 2 weeks within 30 minutes every day. Treat it like a contract. Watch what happens to your evenings and your sleep pressure without you forcing anything else.